welcome to the Writer's Bridge. It is so nice to have you. And it is our 50th episode, which is like amazing. I never thought that it would last this long. Please go ahead and type in the chat where you're coming in from. And if you have any platform questions, feel free to add those platform questions to the chat as we go, and I will capture them and ask our panelists those. Today, we are going to talk about unique platforms and what makes one specific area right for an author to focus on. Where is it best to spend your time relative to the kind of person that you are? And each member of our panel has a really different kind of platform. One person is speaking for a cultural movement, one person is writing for commercial media, and one person is living it up on TikTok, which I am super excited to hear about because I don't know about y'all, but TikTok like scares me. It just seems like the Wild West out there. Before we dive in, I do want to let you know what's happening in the Express Lane, which is our paid membership program. In the last 2 weeks, members learned to segment their lists easily to figure out which members of their audience are interested in what. And we are also reviewing people's freebies, giving feedback on ideas and rough drafts, and even signing up for member freebies to give them feedback on how that process works for a reader or an audience member coming in. If you are also interested in tiny platform building steps in your inbox, please do join us. It's at writersbridge.com/expresslane. And actually, I think it's the writersbridge.com/expresslane. And Brooke says in the chat, I watch the Reiki girls on TikTok wave their hands and it calms me before I go to bed. Totally hearing it, totally hearing it. If you're just joining us, please feel free to drop into the chat where you're coming in from and keep those questions coming when you have a question and we will ask them. So let me introduce our first panelist. Tia Levings shines light on abuses in high control Christian fundamentalism and the impact that our news and headlines today have when we hear about these different groups. Her memoir of escape from church-sanctioned domestic abuse releases with St. Martin's Press in 2024. Congratulations, Tia. I understand we're going to get the exciting title of your book at some point real soon from an exclusive announcement. You'll be able to find Tia at tialevings.com, and we will link that in the follow-up. Tia, you are turning personal and immediately relevant stories into cultural stories that everybody needs to read. Will you kick us off by telling us a little bit about what your platform is and why and how that came to be your focus? And then I'll introduce our other two panelists one at a time.
Yes, I like to say that my platform is proof that no topic is off limits. You can make a platform out of whatever your passion is and whatever your experience is. I lived through a cultural movement for the past 40 years that we are seeing large, big, wide cultural shift. And I lived in the microcosm and I survived it. So I feel almost a calling to share the meta insight that I have. The platform, I call it that. I mean, of course, it's platform. We're going to talk about platform. We're going to talk about the application of it and the expression of it. But those are just avenues for the same thing that I've always done. And that's why the authenticity comes through. So I'm excited to dig a little more deep into that. But if anybody's out there thinking, oh, my topic's not fun, or my topic isn't the kind of thing that gets attention online, let's talk, because Christian fundamentalism and spiritual abuse are about as dark as they get. And I have church-sanctioned domestic abuse is what I call it, church-sanctioned. So it's abuse that your church said is okay. And that is not something that should work on TikTok or Instagram, but it does.
And yet you have made it do so, which is pretty awesome.
I think, I think if you share from your heart and you're sharing something that is relevant to someone else and you're doing so in an authentic way with your integrity, you will find the connections.
100% agree. Our next panelist, Jaclyn Greenberg, is a former tax accountant turned freelance writer who in the past 2 years has written for CNN, Wired, HuffPost, Parents, Good Housekeeping, Photos, Hippocampus, Business Insider, Reviewed, Pop Sugar, Scary Mommy, Motherwell, and other places. She lives on the East Coast with her husband, 3 kids, and a dog, and she's working on a memoir. Jaclyn, you are also turning personal and immediately relevant stories into stories that everybody needs to read. Some of your stories even started as Instagram posts. How did this become your platform? How does it work? What do you talk about, and how do you get people to pay you to talk about it?
I write mostly about my son, who has pretty severe disabilities. I started writing honestly out of frustration. I quit my job 6 years ago to support my family, and all of the things that I experienced with him related to accessibility and lack of inclusion just lit a fire in me to want to change the world. And I started writing. I had a very timely piece, which is how I started writing. I caught a virus when I was pregnant that caused my son's disabilities. So the pandemic was very timely, very difficult for me to avoid not writing about that connection. And then the words just started flowing out of me. And I think that for me, I'm more trying to find what it is I really do want to say in a larger book, which is why my platform is very varied with different locations. But I really try to find where my words will fit to educate others, and where others can learn from what I've learned about how to navigate a very inaccessible world.
And I love in particular, Jaclyn, how you on your social media and in the articles that you write, you answer the questions that we all kind of want to ask, but we're afraid of being really rude by asking them. You know, like you spell it out for us. How should you react to my son in his wheelchair with a disability when you meet us in public? How should a medical professional interact with us? And I love that you get so specific about those things in a way that helps anybody who interacts in the world as a human being, which is pretty awesome.
Thank you. I think, I know what it was like. I know who I was before I had my son, and I know how I've changed. So I try to bridge that gap so that other people will understand better too.
Love that. Megan Aronson, our third panelist, is a writer, public speaker, and national opioid recovery and mental health advocate who lives in the Red Rocks of Sedona, Arizona. After overcoming an extraordinary number of challenges in her life, including a rare seizure disorder and her husband's opioid addiction, she is currently working on publishing her memoir, 47 Chances, which shares her extraordinary story of love versus addiction. And I'm going to say that's another topic that doesn't exactly sound like you're going to be laughing it up on TikTok. And we're all kind of afraid of TikTok. And yet, Megan, you are doing amazingly over there. Why TikTok, and how are you being strategic about TikTok while still having a good time doing it?
First of all, thanks so much for having me. And, I started out on Twitter several years ago. I had built up an account on there right when Twitter first started, and had built that for my television station I was working for at the time. And then when I came back around to realizing that I needed a platform as an author, I was like, well, I have this Twitter account sitting there. I'll try and build that up. And I in a year, I got it from 2,000 followers to 17,000. But then TikTok is kind of like this whole other thing that I just kind of got into recently. And I really feel like it's from a really heart-centered place. It's just, this is our story. This is something amazing that happened to me. I feel very lucky because only 10% of people usually go get treatment for an addiction. And my husband survived an opioid addiction, and our marriage survived it. And so I've just been speaking from a place from my heart, kind of like Tia was saying, with authenticity. I usually meditate before I make a TikTok, and I feel like that just brings it from my heart. And then I have fun with it, and it is a lot of fun, but I get it. TikTok was terrifying for me for a while too. So I actually just spent months just watching videos on TikTok and learning what it was about, what works for other people, what doesn't, so that when I finally felt like I was ready to do it, it just came from a really natural place, and I could find my way to fit in over there and find my own little niche,
Love that. I love that. So this is really interesting too, because I did not actually do this intentionally, but we in fact have 3 people who write about really dark, meaningful, intense, great, big personal things who are still connecting beautifully with the audience. What kind of audience responses do you get? And any of you can weigh in on that. Do you get messages? Do you get comments? Do you just see the follows tick up? What kind of audience responses are there? How do you know they're engaged?
I'll go. The thing that I get the most is I've put language to something they have observed or they have experienced, and I have validated something they thought existed outside. It moves them towards their healing. It moves them forward in their journey. And almost every comment that I get, especially in DMs, is a validation of that. Oh, thank you for finally saying that. Oh, I didn't know what that was called. Oh, this is impacting us in big ways, and I didn't know how to explain it to people. Or they're watching family members go into high control groups and they're pedaling like mad. They don't know what to say and how to use it. So I think that the social media impact and most of my engagement is around language and developing this shared common language for not only the traumatic experiences and the things that happen, but for the recovery. I'm not a therapist, and I'm not somebody who can really help them in their recovery beyond pointing them in the direction or sharing my own experience. But I can give them language so that they know how to go do the next step. And I'm just so this little cog. And that's how I see my engagement, is that we'll make each other stronger for this little moment. And we'll have this little shared communion, and it's a holy thing, but that's another tangent. But we'll have this little moment, and then you will take it and go forward knowing that you can heal. So many people that follow me they've given up on the idea that they can heal. They've just relegated that to the past or to something else. And social media brings it out front and center a lot, like Jaclyn's work, bring it out front and center. Well, Megan's too. All of these subjects bring the hard stuff to the light.
That is so neat. Jaclyn, you are mostly publishing in online venues. What kind of audiences responses do you get? Do you interact with them?
I don't get as many responses from the publications unless I post them in places. And then sometimes, I actually am on all the social media channels too. I even post on LinkedIn. So I will get responses, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I guess most of my engagement with an audience would be through Instagram, where I have the largest following. So I do have a lot of other families that connect with me, either families that are in a similar situation as me, or people that just want to learn and understand better, or have a friend or family member that they want to help understand the situation better. So I do get a lot of different DMs. I think, the best compliment is when someone shares your article, right? Because then they resonate with it and then also share it to a broader audience. So, I try to kind of be all over, and my platform actually benefits me as well. I started writing and posting on my social media accounts about 2 years ago, and it helps me. So different articles that I write where I'm researching things that would benefit my son, I end up purchasing some of those items, and they make my life easier. Or I see some other therapy that someone posted, a friend, and I'll take my son to something. So the give and the take has really benefited, how I'm learning and how I'm helping my family. And it has broadened my world in a way that I really never expected it to. So it's just really great.
Awesome. Megan, how about you? What are your interactions with your audience?
It's been really amazing to see what's happening on TikTok. Like, I'll get emotional just talking about it because, for years I've been feeling like I was screaming into the void because addiction is a dark topic. But I always knew, because we have a love story, if I focused in on the love and the overcoming, that was going to open the doorway to bring people in. And I think that's kind of a key thing on TikTok, is that if you have a message that you want to share, it has to be entertaining, or it has to be have an emotional impact. You have to make people feel something. And I think that was maybe why some of what I've done has resonated with people, because it's making them feel something. It's uplifting them. It's inspiring them. And then the interactions that I've been getting have just meant literally everything to me, because, you know, there are other people that are fighting this disease, and maybe they're losing the fight. You know, maybe it's a mom of 5 who lost her husband to an overdose, but hearing our story somehow gives her hope, you know, and that just means the world to me. And hearing from all those people is just the most meaningful thing. It's a lot of comments. It's not so much DMs, but mostly comments. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, the 2 TikToks that recently went viral, they went viral over a month ago, and the comments are still just coming in every day. And that, to me, is just, it's giving, like Tia was saying, it's giving someone permission to take up space in the world with what they're struggling through.
That's beautiful. Yeah. And I think too, that's something that I really enjoy, even with a more lighter weight platform, you know, which is mostly centered on teaching writing. I love when somebody responds to me and goes, wow, this helped. Like, I feel like I have made a little positive deposit in the bank of goodwill in the world, you know, and there are people in this room right now who have become my friends because they had advice for me or I had advice for them. And I just love that. We have a couple of similar questions in the chat. How much time do you end up spending focusing online? And how much are you planning and how much are you pantsing what you are creating? And Jaclyn, I know you're going to have a really different answer than the other 2. So will you kick us off?
As a writer, I'm just always churning ideas, right? So it's my lived experiences. It's my current lived experiences. I still have 3 young children and I'm still navigating this world. So I'm probably always churning ideas. It's finding the right home and the right way to say it that's difficult. So maybe I'll jot down ideas one day. I don't think anything, you know, I don't just sit there and say, oh, you know, what am I going to say today? I think it's, I suddenly have a good idea and this is the right platform for it, right? Okay, I have, or something comes to me and I write it down and maybe later I'll figure out where it belongs. I think that those are 2 separate jobs, right? We have our thoughts and our feelings as writers, and then we jot them down, and then finding a home for them is a whole separate job. Whether that's through social media or through an article, finding that home is another challenge. So I'm kind of always churning, and I think probably the pieces that do the best are when I really feel the emotion myself. So if I'm doing something, if I'm out with my family and I've overcome another obstacle, and it's something that I want to share, those are the stories that really resonate with people, because, you know, piggybacking off of what Megan said, it's the sharing, what we're working through and being vulnerable about it. And sharing the love and sharing the positivity. So I could easily go on Instagram and say, you know, I have all of these challenges and I'm very angry and I'm very frustrated, but I don't. I share how we have overcome those obstacles and how it would be helpful for somebody else to help us overcome those obstacles.
So you're strategically presenting your genuine, actual vulnerability, which I think is really neat. Tia and Megan, are you plotters? Are you pantsers? How do you keep this online presence as a constant thing?
I'm dying to answer, but I
go ahead.
I want to build off what Jaclyn just said. You're all writers here, I assume. So social media content generation is so similar to memoir writing. It is not a parade of what you experienced that went wrong. It's not a parade of your hardship. You have to craft your content with the same character arc and helpful skill and attention. So I love that came up because it's important.
I agree. And so many people think that being on social media is, I'm going to completely reveal everything about my life and violate all of my own privacy. And it is extremely strategic. Tia, do you have more you want to add on that?
I do, because I learned about content buckets here, and I learned about them a year before my platform exploded. And that is important work I use every single day. There are subjects I talk about, subjects I won't. There's boundaries around my content. There's boundaries in my set design, everything. And it's because of the Writer's Bridge segments that I did before. You have to build it before it explodes, that's how it's manageable. As for the nitty gritty time, I'm in this data all the time. So I'm going to just buckle your little seatbelts, because it sounds like a lot, and it bona fide is. 6.5 hours a day goes to social media. That does not include idea generation. Like what Jaclyn was saying, I do the same thing. I write it down on a list and I'm thinking through and I'm paying attention to the world around me. It has to be organic shares for my kind of content. And I don't know if this is for like the others who, but I cannot plot out a month ahead of a content schedule and have it land with the same engagement. And this engagement sold my memoir and is launching my career. It is what is changing my community's lives. We are engaging in a way. So I don't look at that as, oh my God, one more thing to do as a writer. And now I have to be a content generator. I get to do the work that is going to sell my book and promote this healing and bring this conversation to the light. It's a huge privilege, but it is 6.5 hours and that's peppered throughout the day. That's not like I'm sitting, I have a day job, you know, I am working more than 40 hours a week between my day job and this work. But
I think, Tia, I think most people who are successfully getting their ideas into the world on a regular basis are working more than 40 hours a week, whether that is parenting plus idea generating, whether that is showing up in an office plus idea generating. Megan, what kind of time are you spending on this? Do you schedule posts in advance? How does it work?
You know, it's the same thing for me as it is for Tia. This is all just coming from my heart. What moves me, what speaks to me. It's about living my life in an on fire way so that I create space in my life that ideas come to me. You know, I'll be out on a hike in Sedona and something will come to me and I'll just record it on my phone. I use my voice recording app a lot when I have an idea because I'll kind of see the video in my head and hear the voiceover. And so I'll record the voiceover really quick because that kind of anchors me in to remember the rest of it right that second. I probably do spend a pretty good amount of time on social media as well, but I feel the same way that Tia does. It is my lifeblood. It feeds me. I love the people on Twitter, all the women writers that I connect with. That feeds my soul. It gets me through the writer's journey. And I love that we're finally, you know, my biggest goal and mission has been to use our love story to destigmatize addiction. And so getting to do that on TikTok is a dream. I love it. Just, it's amazing. I don't plan. I just, you know, post it when I can. I'll usually kind of build TikTok slowly over time. And then I just go in my closet and record the voiceovers. And I always just try to come from a really heart-centered place when I do those voiceovers. Everything took off for me in my career with my memoir and everything as well when I started just being authentic and speaking from my heart. And then using the tools that I've learned, places like the Writer's Bridge, to help me with that.
And I want to chime in as well, because I dropped this in the chat, but I want to make sure that you guys know too. I am certain that many people see me as very often present on social media. I probably don't do anywhere near as much as Tia or Megan. I spend probably 1 to 3 hours a day on Twitter, Facebook, and a little bit of Instagram. I check it in the morning when I get up because I'm in a time zone where stuff happened overnight. I also pre-schedule a lot of my tweets so that I can both be spontaneously on Twitter in the moment when I feel like it, but I also have 2 or 3 tweets a day that are going out no matter what. And my virtual assistant helps me with scheduling a bunch of those tweets. Twitter is something where if you're sharing information, there's a lot of stuff you can schedule in advance. You just have to be really wary whenever a major national tragedy happens that you have not accidentally scheduled something deeply insensitive to come out on the same day. You're all talking about privacy too, privacy and vulnerability. We had a great question from Brian in the chat because Brian has concerns about privacy with TikTok because unlike Facebook and Instagram, where you can reclaim your data, on TikTok you cannot. It is also owned by a foreign nation. Jaclyn, I know you picture one of your children and you black out the faces of your other children in social. Tia, I don't know what you do because it's clear when you're openly vulnerable about some things, it's not obvious that you're hiding other things. Same with you, Megan. Are you worried about TikTok and privacy? Are you worried about privacy as a whole?
Worried is an interesting word. I would say I'm mindful of it. You have to have, I want to speak a little bit to the overwhelm too. It's going to parallel because I know there are people here that are a little bit overwhelmed at that workload, and it pairs very well with privacy. Understanding the needs of the platform you're using. understanding how their algorithm works, and more importantly, understanding where your own personal boundaries are, all play into both your time allotment and to your privacy. I've worked really hard to make my boundaries not so obvious. However, I also make them obvious. If you read my captions, I have kids that do not want their face online, and I protect that. I don't need to offer an explanation as to why. Like, I've done my work to know that average Joe stranger on the internet doesn't get to know why my boundaries are my boundaries unless I explain them. I want to say them, but it goes back again to the strategic determination that you have at the beginning of what you're going to build. These aren't accidents. These are outpourings. And they're outpourings that were possible because I know I'm speaking a little bit for my fellows here, but we have a plan in place. We know where our lines are drawn. We know what our time allotment is. We know what our aesthetic is. We understand how the algorithm works. We were taking Brighter's Bridge way back when we were little tiny platforms, and we paid attention to what works online and what doesn't. Privacy, I mean, like, are they spying? Okay, they're going to see my books. Like that. Like, am I worried? No, I'm mindful of it. You're going to see a lot of books. I don't have my books now and I miss them, but you've seen my reels with all my books. There's a reason why that's my set in every video. And it's privacy, man.
Like that.
Yeah.
Megan, how about you?
You know, for me, my family is in this with me completely. And my husband is this really amazing human that he has completely given me carte blanche to show his picture and associate that with overcoming his addiction. And he just doesn't want to hold me back in any way from being able to help other people. And so I kind of have boundaries that just come with each different thing that I do, depending on what the idea comes up for me. You know, there are certain boundaries that I have that are hard boundaries on what I am not going to share. I know there's things on TikTok where, you know, I want to be careful to protect my children. So I'm careful how I show them. But I do show them. They are in this with us, and all of them have signed on for it. And but you know, the focus is really on my husband and I. So that's where I try to keep it as much as possible. And you know, it's something that I feel like I'm going to attract back to me what I'm putting out there, if that makes sense. And I'm probably more trusting than I should be, but I just really think if I'm putting out good things, hopefully good things are going to come back, you know?
I like that. Quick question from Marisa in the chat. Do any of you struggle with chronic illnesses? Marisa finds that to be a huge time zap and a chronic interruption, a random interruption thing. Megan, let's hear from you again.
Yeah, I'm a PTSD survivor. I live CPTSD. I overcame a seizure disorder. I was having 20 seizures a day while I was writing my book, while I was building my platform. It is definitely something I still struggle with, and I still devote time every single day to doing the practices that keep me healthy. I did a brain retraining program that changed my life, and I still do that every single day. So everything that I'm doing is in balance. You know, I'm balancing. My mental health has to come first. Otherwise, there's nothing else. None of this works. None of this happens. And so I would really encourage you, do what you can with what you have, and let it make a difference. When it's coming from your heart, sometimes just one little thing can have this big, huge, long reaching impact. And it's because it came from your heart.
Yeah. Can I second that? Almost word for word. I have CPTSD and NMS diagnosis that comes with symptoms. I have to be absolutely, utterly, pun intended, religious about my mental health. And it does come first and foremost before anything else. The good thing about momentum with platform is that when you need to take a step back, your work will start doing your work for you. So things are still happening, even if I have a down day. And there's boundaries again around time and what you can give. Start with what you have. It's not worth the cost of your mental health.
Jaclyn, how about you?
I also have PTSD, and it comes and goes depending on if anybody in my family has a doctor's appointment, including myself. It ebbs and flows. So when I do have those moments, I always prioritize my own health and my own sanity. I can't do anything unless I'm okay. So I will take days here and there where I'm just more an observer rather than like a content creator. It's gotten easier for me over time, and I guess it varies throughout the year. As far as privacy, my family is very supportive of what I do and would be perfectly fine with me, including all of them. But I'm very cautious and timid with how I say things and what I want to say, because I don't share a lot of what we go through, and some of the, the more tricky challenges and things. I maybe keep them high level, or talk about I've changed and how I've grown from that situation, rather than including whatever it is about my child. And then as far as you mentioned earlier about posting his pictures compared to my other two, and I have given that a ton of thought. A lot of our challenges are because of my son's physical appearance and his disabilities. So I feel like it's difficult to talk about and explain and to write about what I'm writing about without showing that, because it would be very difficult to explain through words alone. If I could, I probably wouldn't show his face either, but it's difficult for me not to. And, a lot of people have said to me that his smile and his facial expressions are what really draw them in. And that's very true. So I kind of have to be okay with that, even though it does make me a little uncomfortable. My other two are young, and maybe as they get older, if they really are still okay with me including them, then I will. I hope that answers what you're.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. We have a question from Chrissy in the chat that also deals with another question we got in advance. Chrissy asks, with thinking about overall strategy, what if you want to build a bigger conversation than the topic in book number 1? And Lorna asked as well, my memoir in progress is about healing myself from a father who lived a double life and had a secret family. I also write and speak a fair amount about motherhood, specifically having neurodiverse children and breaking the cycle of abuse. Can both those topics be my platform, or do I need to choose one? Chime in, panel.
Yes. Can I say content buckets again?
Will you just briefly tell us what a content bucket is?
Okay, so the content bucket are the things that you decide you're going to talk about. And one of the early Writers Bridges episodes has an exercise where you create a magazine cover in Canva of what you talk about. And it's like you're selling yourself, you're the picture on the magazine, and then you have these bubbles of what you talk about. My memoir, it's a small piece of my platform, and that's going to probably sound really weird because of course I'm doing this for my memoir, right? Well, not exactly. I mean, yes, my memoir, but also the TV opportunities I'm getting, and the screenwriters who are calling me, and the film directors, and the fact that I want to start a religious horror genre after this and write fiction. They're all going to be compatible underneath the same thing because they fit on my magazine cover. That's me. These are all facets of me, and these are the 6 things I talk about, and that's why it's going to be bigger than a book. I mean, the book journey in itself is so weird because I wrote it, and then my platform let me sell it on proposal. Then I finished it over the summer, but it's still going to be almost 2 years before it releases. In the meantime, what am I going to be doing? I don't want to become like a Christian fundamentalist authority. That's not what I want to do. So this conversation is always in my head of, this is not just about my book. This is not selling this one book. This is my career. And that's me. So yeah, I totally think, oh, thank you, Marissa. I think so too. I totally think that you have to think bigger than one book.
I just want to chime in on Tia again for one more second, and then we are going to come back to Jaclyn and Megan on that. We also have a question from Shelley in the chat that I think is relevant here. She has her son's mental health, her journey, and mindfulness that she writes about. Does she need to write a book to support the platform? Because Tia, it sounds like your actual platform is important to you. It's not just about selling the book. That was like an extra amazing bonus. Can you weigh in on that a little bit?
I will say that if I didn't already have a book underway, I would have started one, because they're begging for one every day. I could have sold a book so many times over because they beg for it. because I hit the nerve and they want
They
it.
your
So,
audience.
yeah.
Yeah. Megan, how do you deal with multiple platform? And then Jaclyn as well.
Yeah, it's a lot like Tia, it's not as much about, I mean, the book is definitely a big piece for me because it is my life story. It is this really amazing thing that happened. But, when you're in the query trenches for a long time and then you realize, okay, by the time I get it published, it's going to be another 2 years. It just makes you think, okay, what am I really in this for? And it's to connect with people. It's to help other people. Like that's going to be going whether there's a book or not, so I'm going to continue to just do that, and I love Twitter because I've been doing it for years and I kind of do it different than other people. I just post really vulnerably from my heart, but I have a much bigger brand than just my book as well. I have this Rise Again brand that's kind of the umbrella over everything. And it's much more personal development, motivational, inspirational. I have overcome so many different challenges in my life that I can talk about cancer overcoming. I can talk about mental health. I can talk about marriage and relationships and addiction. My next book is going to be much more of like a self-help how-to book. So I'm thinking ahead to that. And I'm thinking of, building a career overall, not just this one book. But I would say to that person, ask yourself what's in your heart. If there's a book in your heart, then that's when it comes from that place, that's when it really does well in the world.
Jaclyn, how about you?
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely when it's in your heart. I was a tax accountant. I never thought I would be a writer. I never had an interest in writing. I learned how to write to share my experiences because I was so frustrated with so many things that I had gone through over the past decade that I wanted to change them. I mean, my ultimate goal, I think I would like to be a speaker to, I'd like to go to medical conferences and help doctors and other therapists understand how to help parents like me when a child is initially diagnosed, because I struggled so much when my son was younger, and there's a whole world out there that I didn't know existed. I think there's a huge gap in between the medical community and disability services that are out there and the world that's out there. And there's just so much growth that needs to happen that for me too, it's become it's a complete passion. It's all I think about. This is my life. This is my family's life. My son's challenges don't only impact him, they impact our entire family of 5 and anybody else that wants to engage with him or spend time with him. So I'm just a huge advocate all around. And, I think my platform is so varied with where I've published because over the past 2 years, I mean, Allison, I met you when I was just starting to write, when I started coming to these Writers Bridge meetings. I didn't know what I wanted to say. So for me, writing in all these different various platforms is helping me figure out what I do want to say. I'm 53,000 words into a memoir. I'm working on a coach. Thanks, Abby, for the referral. And I'm kind of doing all of it at the same time because I'm trying to figure out what I really want to say and how I want to say it and where my words can benefit making an impact on the world and making a change in the world. So like the other two, I'm just I am completely changed, and I think the other two are as well, and we want to share that. And so when you have a passion that burns in you, it's not like, oh, I do this a couple of hours a day. It's always churning in the back of your head. It's you wake up in the morning and something happens and you go, oh, I need to write that down. Or, I've had conversations with other writers. Oh, when you're in the shower or when you're in the car, or, these things come to you and you have to remember that, that was a situation that made you feel, right? You're living your life and you're feeling a feeling, and then you write it down. We're all trying to express feelings and situations into words so that other people can understand and relate to us. Like that's what we're learning how to do. And so whatever platform you find valuable, it's a world, it's a lifestyle. And I think we're all in that same boat, trying to figure out where and how we can make the biggest impact and connect with others that can either relate to us or learn from us or, share resources.
I love that.
Before I forget, I really want to share this because I think it's so valuable. I learned this on this influencer summit that I went to, that you should make a giant list of a story bank of all the stories that you have to tell. And that was like an aha moment for me. Somebody had gone on my TikToks and watched a few of them and said to me, "You're a great storyteller." And I'm like, duh, I'm a writer. We're all writers. We know how to tell a story. You know how to tell, you've done the work to write a query or a book proposal on how to get your story down into a shorter time frame, but it doesn't even always have to be stories that are related to your work. It could be some cute little love story, and that's related to my story because it has to do with love. And if you just make a big long list, then you always have something that you can go back to. So just remember that we are all storytellers. Figure out how to tell a story in any short little way.
And this ties back to what we've said many times before. Nobody wants to be your customer. They want to be your friend. And the more you can decide what you're comfortable sharing online and share it beautifully and personally and vulnerably, the more people are going to feel connected to you when you share the stuff that is about your work as well. A quick question from David. Do you have agents, and do your agents participate in your platforms?
Well, I have a cool agent story because I ultimately landed with an agent that connected with me online through my platform. She watched me for a while and she reached out to me when I queried 4 others and I had choices, and it was everything we dream about, but I went with the one who was so engaged online. She's like there, she's ready for instant message. She's fantastic. She knows my content from the inside out. And that's who I landed with. She doesn't necessarily engage though, like under the posts and stuff. She'll sometimes, if it really resonates, she'll like it or she'll comment, but she hasn't shared it. We kind of keep that on a very professional lowdown. My publisher is kind of quiet online, but also like she knows my content from her heart, so she's very passionate about it. They're engaged online, but not like immediately, not directly.
Megan and Jaclyn, I think you two are both still on your agent seeking journey.
Yes, but I will say that the things that have been happening on TikTok have definitely gotten some agents' attention recently. So we'll see where that goes.
I haven't tried to find an agent yet. I think I spent the past 2 years trying to figure out the story that I want to tell and to understand that I could write, because it just wasn't on my radar before then. But, I have a better idea of the story that I'm trying to tell. So in the near future, I'm hoping to find somebody.
Love that. My agent is really lovely about my platform. She frequently will retweet me if she likes the writing advice I'm giving. She recommends my book online to people. And something that helped me a lot was she did a giveaway through her blog of a copy of my book. And when you signed up to enter the giveaway, you had to say yes or no, I would like to be on Allison's email list. And I got 160 new email signups in like an afternoon that my agent had carefully typed into an Excel sheet for me, which was just really awesome and lovely. And I like it because it feels like a little like, oh, good, I got a pat. I'm doing a good job. My agent liked it. A quick side trip here into fiction. Emily is a novelist who writes for both YA and adult. Does what you've learned about building platform translate to fiction? And a similar question from Twink, when you have a fiction about to release, would you recommend focusing on the content of the book or yourself, like maybe your author journey, or is it just authentic, positive stories to uplift your audience? Fiction, does it apply?
I'm studying this right now, so I have a little, I follow Erin Hahn and Adrienne Young. Both do crossover fiction with YA and adult fiction. And they do a little bit of both, because social media, guys, is human. It's human. Know your subject, and what you're working on will effervescently flow from you. That's what happens. So decide what your topics are, and it won't matter what your direct project is. Adrienne, she releases like 3 books a year. It's a crazy pace, and some of it's YA and some of it's for adults. And her content is the same. She's a human author who talks about her projects and peripheral items that come up, which I think is the same. I could say that same sentence for my work, and plan to stay that way. This is my work, this is what I do, and these are my peripheral topics.
I've seen a lot of authors on Twitter that it's like you're saying, the humanizing element that are fiction. If you could put yourself into one of your characters' shoes, and speak from their perspective and give a snapshot of a moment that happens in the story that's really intriguing or interesting or evokes an emotion, that would be a really great way to look at it. You could just be showing any kind of random scenery and have a voiceover, or you could be speaking directly from that person and showing some cool pictures or stock photos. Just get creative with it, have fun with it. That's the other big piece here is, I think for all three of us, we only continue to do it because we're also having fun while we're doing it.
Megan, do you remember who it was that was, I don't know if we both follow her, but there's an author who does murder mysteries, and she did her content from the point of view of her protagonist. They were crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I see Netflix and Amazon Prime Video and all them doing these, like, they're almost like book trailers, but they're just taking a moment, and it comes across like a TikTok where someone's saying, this happened to me on this day, this terrible thing, and then and it's actually fiction.
That's really interesting. I love that. As we get towards the end of our episode, we are going to ask each of our panelists, who I am going to try and remember to pin again. We're going to ask each of our panelists, what is the number one thing that you would advise that somebody who is beginning your platform do, and what kind of person does it really suit? And before we do that, I just want to also let you know, you will get the replay email tomorrow. Please do feel free to forward that to a writer friend. Our next episode is going to be SOS, Saving Our Sanity with Virtual Assistants. Our lovely Ashley Renard is going to be coming back and joining us for just that episode. And Ashley's VA, Lauren, will be coming on, and my VA, Claudia, will also be coming on. And so you'll get to hear not only about how to find help, whether that's a virtual assistant, an intern, or your kid, but also what to delegate. And if you can't delegate, what can you automate or get rid of? So panelists, will you tell us who is really suited to be on the platform that you're on, and what's your number one piece of advice for them? Jaclyn, will you kick us off?
Sure. The number one person, I think somebody that's trying to figure out their story, somebody that I think my platform was good for me because I needed that confidence boost that I can write. I didn't know that I could. And so by writing for so many different outlets, I now have this confidence that I can write. It's helping me identify the story of what I want to say. So it was a good first step for me. And the best advice I have is to read a lot. I had to read a lot of the different sites to see what people wanted and how they wanted it and how I could tailor my voice to their site. So I did a lot of reading other people's work to figure out how to do that.
I love that. And I very often recommend to writers who want to get published in a specific place, analyze some of what's already published in there, like print it out and go, okay, paragraph 1 is starting in a scene with a story. Almost all modern loves start in a scene. So if you want to write for modern love, write a piece that starts in a scene, but break it down and look at what is each paragraph doing. Oh, here's where the author expresses their opinion. Here's where they bring in data to support their point or quote an expert. And the more you can follow that format, it may not be the final format of your beautiful creative product, but it will help you understand the voice of the publication a lot more. Megan, who is right for your kind of platform, and what is your number one piece of advice for them?
Well, I know TikTok can be really intimidating, and just so you know, it was super intimidating to me too. And my 15-year-old pretty much taught me how to use it. So that's how I really had the leg up. Now I have all kinds of writers asking if my 15-year-old is for hire. So, I get that it can be intimidating, and I get that probably a lot of people think that it's more geared towards a younger generation, but I have really found there are plenty of people of all ages on TikTok, and there's a lot of niches on TikTok. And so you can really find your niche. And that's why I say to start by just getting on there and just enjoying TikTok and liking things and following people, because that starts to tailor the algorithm to your interests. And then you start to meet other people that are like you. So like lately, I've been commenting on more addiction related TikToks, and all of a sudden I'm seeing a lot of ones about fentanyl. And I'm really grateful to see that, because fentanyl overdoses are really huge right now. And the really neat thing is that if you're watching other people's content on TikTok, it will just spark an idea for you. Or you might see a trend that people are doing that's something that you can just hop on and make your own. And so it's always kind of giving you ideas if you're engaging with it as well. And then this is my biggest piece of advice. It might show up backwards for you, but I wrote this down after I went to a influencer summit, and it says, hold the state of presence and work from that state to serve. So if you come from your heart and you serve from that place, I think that's my biggest piece of advice. Just connect with people, find out how you can serve, how you can help someone, how you can make an impact on somebody's life today. And it might just be as simple as making them smile, but if you can get them to feel something, it's like what Maya Angelou said, some people will forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Beautiful, beautiful. Tia, who is really suited for your kind of platform, and what's your number one piece of advice for them?
The people who are suited they're very interested in breaking down what's happening in the larger scope in our culture. They want to see the behind the scenes of the religious influences and religious trauma, but it helps if you have a good sense of humor. You're okay with some dark humor, some F-bombs. You want to know about what foxes are. I show up very vivid there. And we have fun. I have an emphasis on reclamation and healing, so I don't stay in the trauma spot too long. What was the other question? Sorry.
What's your number one piece of advice for somebody starting
it's keep
that kind
social
of
media
platform?
social. Remember, these are humans. There's no other easy way to engage with potential readers. Like, they're right there. So just remember, they're human, be yourself, because nobody else can be you. And just show up.
Love it. Thank you so much to our three amazing panelists. You ladies have given us so much to think about. For everyone, platform is not making a fake self to do things you don't enjoy. It's not violating your own privacy in ways you're not comfortable with. Finding your true platform means doing activities that you will enjoy and be fulfilled by, things that feel like creating new connections and new artistic work. Like Tia said, not accidents, but outpourings. The audience you wants real you. So decide what part of real you're ready to share, and get out there and find the people who need you. Feel free to unmute yourselves for a joyful goodbye. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Allison.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.
That was
Thanks,
great.
everyone.
See your faces.
Bye.
Love you, Stacey.